This is a presentation of BSRN, Box Studios Radio Network. The Power Play Post Show is on the air, covering minor league hockey since 2003, and now covering the Binghamton Black Bears with news, reactions, and in-depth interviews only heard here. And now from the Box Studios in Kirkwood, New York, here is your host of the Power Play Post Show, Bob Howard.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. This is the show for May 22nd. This is season 14, episode number 69, and this is episode number 508 in the long-running podcast that is the Power Play Post Show. Hello, everyone. I am Bob Howard, and she is
Taylor.
And welcome back, obviously, to the Power Play Post Show. We have a great show planned for you, a great interview with Brant Sherwood that you guys will get to hear. Now, you've heard a couple of the previews. There's a lot of great stuff still for you guys to hear from Brant Sherwood, and we're really excited for you guys to hear that. Taylor, can you indulge me for a second?
Sure. What are we indulging on?
Okay. I want to talk about the last 24 hours in the Fed. I have some thoughts about some things, and sometimes I need to get it off my chest. And so before we get into the meat and potatoes of sometimes the episodes, I do this little monologue. And for me, I never seen so much dysfunction in a pro league that I've seen sometimes in the Fed over the past 2.5 years that I've brought this show back. And it's amazing too, because a lot of times this show is about telling the stories of the players, but unfortunately, sometimes the league gets kind of in the way of that, right? And they just kind of like, do stuff that just makes people scratch their head. It makes people go, wait a second here. This is the fourth level of hockey in this country, and yet they act like they've never done this before. And we just completed the 15th season of this league, and it seems like sometimes they don't learn from some of their mistakes. And it frustrates the heck out of me. And it makes me write some of the essays that I've written over the past year about questioning what is really going on in this league. Why does these things continue to happen and make the league kind of look so strange to other people, right? There are fans that just don't know. They don't understand. They haven't been around the game long enough to understand when something is odd or not right. And just the way they kind of handle themselves just makes no sense, right? If the rules of the expansion draft changed, why not just tell everyone? Let everyone know, hey, this is not going to happen. Not verbally through Facebook attack a paying customer. To me, that just doesn't make any sense. And that's what we've kind of seen from this league. And it just confuses me, right? Because I want to put a positive spin on the Binghamton Black Bears almost all the time, right? Yeah, there's some bad stuff that can happen over time, and stuff that we have to talk about that maybe isn't the greatest things. But most of the time, I really want to just talk about the positives of the Black Bears. And it's been great the last 2 years. They won 2 championships, 88 wins in 112 games played, whatever it is, right? Phenomenal. Brant Sherwood bringing in some great players, doing all the right things. And then the league gets in the way of good publicity by creating confusion, disappointment, fans just not understanding what's going on and why they can't see this, why they can't see that. Topeka tries to do a good thing yesterday, and all it does is creates more confusion for fans. Like, well, why can't we know the other picks? Why is the picks live when they weren't really live? They happened at 8 o'clock in the morning, and Topeka was just trying to put on something good for their fans. And it just seemed to get in the way of something that, yeah, the fans might have been disappointed because players are going from one team to another and they fall in love with these players. And Taylor, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you have guys come in, and I've talked to you about some players, and we don't have to mention really any names, but you like, wow, I really like that guy. And then if you're going to, and then in Binghamton's case, one of those guys that you really liked a lot left the team, and you are a fan that's going, well, why does he have to leave? What did he do? And sometimes you can't know that. Sometimes you can't be transparent about personal issues and things that happen with a player and with a team. But that's getting to the point. Players or fans love these players, and then a player has to go from Columbus to Topeka or Columbus to Indiana or Carolina to Indiana or whatever it might be, right? And it's almost better to be more transparent in that situation than it is in any other situation, because it contains some of the disappointment and the hurt and the possibility of these fans being pushed away, so to speak. That's why the last 24 hours seemed unfortunate and painful to kind of watch as a person who's trying to tell the stories of the players. Listen, when I told the story of Andrew Utero in the beginning, the middle, and then what happened at the end of Blue Ridge, it's unfortunate, right? Because it's a story that I've helped tell, but at the same time, it's a story that I wish I didn't have to tell, because I really wish he was successful in Blue Ridge and helped Blue Ridge maybe make the playoffs and do the things that Andrew Utero wanted to do. Instead, he had to go to Danville, and he played with a team that, he helped that team in the end, and that's great. But, it's the craziness that kind of happens in this league that kind of really frustrates me. I had to get that off my chest. Taylor, welcome to the show. Do you have any thoughts about anything that I just said?
I have a lot of thoughts, probably not as many as you do on the subject, but I understand to a certain aspect not wanting to have everything transparent when it comes to rosters or just things throughout the league. But at the same time, you have all of these media outlets that give the fans the information that they're looking for, and to kind of do what they did just kind of puts a bad taste, I think, in quite a lot of people's mouths, because there's a lot of people that throughout this league that look for the information. They're not just going to the hockey game because, it's just a hockey game to them. Right. The fans in this league are so invested into their teams. It's crazy. So to be treated that way, they're trying to make the league better, but I think they just kind of put a bad taste in everybody's mouth yesterday.
I think so too. And you make a good point. They're not just invested in the teams, they're invested in these players. Think about what Kelly Howe did here in Binghamton, right? When the Dashers were going through the issues that they were, Kelly took a lot of time out of her days leading up to Danville or the Dashers coming to Binghamton. And even though they weren't the players that she cheers for every single day, she got very invested in making sure that those players had things, food, whatever they needed once they left Binghamton, because the situation in Danville wasn't all that great. That's what drives me bonkers about sometimes the drama that happens in the Fed is that fans like, Kelly organizing and doing those type of things and helping out a team that she's not even associated with. She's not necessarily a fan of the team. She's a fan of the players, I think, more than anything. And I think you have to understand that there's a lot of fans like that. It's not just Kelly Howe. It's people in Carolina that were doing stuff like that. There were people in other cities that were helping the Dashers as well. And I think when you do what happened in the last 24 hours, where it just seems so chaotic and dysfunctional, and all you have to do is give us just a few moments, a few words, even if it's in a press release, something, I think it makes it seem a lot more interesting and maybe a little bit fun. And I think that's what Topeka tried to do, right? I don't know if you agree, but I think Topeka tried to do a fun thing when they did come on the air and they announced their picks, yet the rest of the league really wasn't on board.
Yeah, I think Topeka was trying to do the right thing, but I think it ended up backfiring on the rest of the league, who where everyone thought this is what was going to happen, and then Topeka came out and did their thing, and everybody kind of did where's everyone else?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Well, I wanted to get that off my chest early. Thank you very much for indulging me. I appreciate it, but I think we'll move on from here. All right. The Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to your podcast, and please subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. It keeps growing, which is great. Just go to Facebook and search Power Play Post Show. Check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. And on this edition of the Power Play Post Show, fans, you already know. You already know that he's going to be on. From the Binghamton Black Bears, head coach Brant Sherwood. I think, first of all, I know his father reached out to me and said, is this show going to happen at all this week? And I said, yes. Calm down, Michael. It's okay. You'll get to hear from your son very, very soon. I don't know about you, but I was excited to do this interview. Were you excited? Are you excited to hear what Brant is going to say in this interview?
I'm pretty sure everyone's excited. I have been waiting since the first tease that you put out for the rest of the interview, and I think everybody else could say the same.
Was the tease a bad idea? Was this mini previews that I did a bad idea?
I wouldn't say it was a bad idea, but it definitely left me wanting more for sure.
Yes, that was the plan. That was exactly what we wanted to do. Okay, so let's get into our first part of this. And the FPHL website was updated, and then it was taken down, and then it was re-updated again. But Taylor, let's go over the new divisional alignment.
So to start off, I'm gonna kind of just mention, we already know Watertown and Danbury. I'm starting off with them because they're the only two teams that are under 3 hours from distance from us. So I wouldn't be surprised if we play them more than a handful of times, because other than those two teams, every other team in our division is over 8 hours away.
Yeah.
The next closest is going to be Blue Ridge. And I know there's a lot of fans that are not the most excited about that, but at the same time, it's going to be a new season. It's going to be a whole new year. It could be whole new players, coaches. Who knows what could come of that? I don't think last season is going to boil over into the next season.
I don't think so either. I agree with you. I don't think it's going to boil. I don't think it's going to kind of roll over. I think, you have to, on both sides, right? The Binghamton side and the Blue Ridge side, you have to find a way to make peace, because you can't, as good as it is for the rivalry, maybe on the ice it's okay. Maybe if they want to have 2 fights per game, every time Binghamton and Blue Ridge play against each other, that's fine. All the other stuff off the ice needs to go away. I say that about Danbury all the time, and I truly mean it. And so I think that has to change. But why don't you give us who's going to be in the Empire Division?
Well, with the addition of Blue Ridge, we have your typical Watertown Wolves, the Danbury Hat Tricks, the Port Huron Prowlers are staying, and then we have 2 new ones, which is the Topeka Scarecrows and the Indiana Sentinels. Okay,
so let me ask you this question. What do you think of the Topeka Scarecrows logo?
It's definitely interesting. I mean, I think it's a lot different than everything else in the league. It's either an animal or of that nature. So,
and the Sentinels.
Oh, I think I like theirs probably the best.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something about the way that it looks. It just seems professional, in my opinion.
Gotcha. And I like the colors. I really do. Now, with the Scarecrows, I like it, but I like it without the Topeka Scarecrows kind of curved name in it. So the just the Scarecrow itself by itself, I like that. I don't like the name being a part of it. Some of the early Watertown Wolves logos that I found online had the Watertown Wolves underneath it. I don't like when the name is incorporated inside the logo. It sounds weird, but I'm like that with all sports. I just don't like I'm a Cowboys fan in football, right? So I like, it's just a simple star, right? And if the name of the team is in there, so like the Green Bay Packers, right? They had the big G in there. It's not my cup of tea. I kind of like the logo to be something separate from the name. That's just my opinion.
I agree with the name, but I think, if you give them another year or so, I mean, our first year we had our B logo and then Binghamton Black Bears underneath of it. So we've upgraded since then. Yeah. So maybe they'll upgrade in the next year.
Now, do you like the bear head logo?
I do.
Yeah, me too. To me, that seemed like the the level up when it came to logoing. And I know I'm probably giving EJ a big head as he's listening to this, because I'm pretty sure EJ created the Bears head logo, and he did not create the B logo that was created before the team was even kind of like really a team, as they were developing, having the Binghamton Black Bears. Andreas went to a company, I believe, and got that done. But I think EJ did a phenomenal job with the Bear head logo. So, at least in my opinion.
I would agree with you.
All right. So you mentioned a little bit about the distance, and I know I put this in the list. Can you kind of go through what Topeka, from Topeka to Binghamton and Columbus and Wytheville, just to give some fans some perspective here?
Well, to Topeka, which is the furthest distance that we'd have to travel within our division, it would be 18 hours. Well, over 18 hours, actually.
Yeah.
Over 1,200 miles.
That's just nuts. I mean, that's just crazy, don't you think?
Yeah, I have a feeling it's either a fly out or it's we don't play them and we play Danbury again.
Yeah. If they're gonna be in their division, we have to play them. I would say they come to us for 3 games and we go there for 3 games, and it's a 6 games against those guys. That's my thought process.
Yeah, probably. Hopefully they get to fly out, because that's going to be a long bus ride if not.
Well, they might have a sleeper bus, so they could use that as well. I know there's going to be the hope is there's going to be a whole new busing contract with Schaefer, and hopefully that's taken care of. So Schaefer takes care of the buses, and they're not using an old broken down bus. So hopefully that'd be the case. Now, what about to Columbus, Indiana?
They're 10 and a half hours away,
mm-hmm.
and just under 700 miles.
That's, that's actually closer than I thought it was going to be.
I mean, if we travel to Blue Ridge, that's a little bit more than a 2-hour difference. So it's not too bad, I don't think.
Yeah. And you would think that we would have played down in Blue Ridge last year. That they would have come up and played against us, because, there are times that Blue Ridge was going further away than coming up to Binghamton, which made no sense to me. Like Blue Ridge, when they were they had to play Monroe and Baton Rouge, and that's like 12 to 13 hours. And why not have them play against Binghamton? You know what I mean? In Binghamton. Binghamton went down there obviously in March of this past year. And, they played 3 games down there. So I just think now, again, I don't remember what it is to Port Huron. Isn't it about 9 hours to Port Huron?
Yeah, so. It's just a little over 9 hours.
Right. So, that's
because they can't. If they could go through Canada, it'd be like 6.
Yeah, exactly. But not all the players, have the proper identification to go through. I know some of the team has gone through Canada to make the trip quicker, but unfortunately, not everybody can do that. So they have to take the 9-hour trip. So Wytheville's actually going to be closer than Port Huron.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good idea. All right. Now, the Continental Division, which we will probably play a few teams in the Continental Division, will consist of the Athens Rock Lobsters, the Baton Rouge Zydeco, Carolina Thunderbirds, Monroe Moccasins, the PD Ice Cats, which I don't know if I'm doing the Ice Cats part right. I don't know if it's Ice Cats is one word. I know when it was in Worcester as the Ice Cats, it was one word. But either way, it's the PD Ice Cats, which I just like the fact that they went with that name than some of the others that they could have. The Columbus River Dragons, and then the Mississippi Pro Hockey Team, which, if I remember correctly, they're trying to decide on the Breakers. Oh, what were the other 2 names? The Breakers and oh crap, I can't remember.
Cruisers or something.
Cruisers, and then there was something else. So they're trying to decide on their name. Apparently, the Sea Wolves name is caught up in some legalities that couldn't get worked out. So I know Justin Barr and Maria Barr, who are very close with the Mississippi hockey community, are really trying to help the Mississippi Pro Hockey Team kind of like get a good message out there for the team, which is pretty cool. Justin Barr being the former captain who was suspended at the end of last season, as everybody knows, but then got to come back and play 1 game. Just as an example, I used Winston-Salem as the benchmark, right? So to go from Winston-Salem to Monroe, where the Moccasins play, it's a 12-hour and 20-minute trip, 816 miles, and then to Baton Rouge from Winston-Salem, or vice versa, it's a 12-hour and 27-minute trip. So, realistically, I know I didn't look at, like Watertown and Danbury to Columbus and to Topeka, but there were some long trips in both conferences for some teams. And I think that's important to remember. It's not just one division that has some long travel. The Continental Division, it went from Blue Ridge to Baton Rouge and Monroe. And if you look at a map, that's a long distance.
I think the hardest thing is because, I think they have some distance to travel, but for the Carolina team, they could go to Monroe and Baton Rouge and kind of make that like a weekend swing to hit both teams possibly. Mm-hmm. Or even for Topeka to come out and hit like Danbury and Watertown in a weekend, or Watertown and Binghamton in a weekend, where it's going to be hard to do much to go out to Topeka because they're kind of like all alone out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. It'll be very interesting. Listen, I personally think, I'll get your opinion on this in a second. I personally think the league did the best that they could with the 14 teams they had when it came to this. I don't think, other than maybe splitting it east-west and putting Port Huron in a Western conference, that you could have done anything better, right? Where you draw a line somewhere down and 7 teams are in the West and 7 teams are in the East, and you kind of do an East-West type of thing. I think this was the best answer with the teams that they have in the league right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is the best that they could do, and probably the best outcome for splitting the divisions the way that they did to make it even. So they're 7-7. I don't think they could have done it any differently, honestly.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what the schedule looks like. Obviously, that'll be probably one of the next big things. I'm sure during this week's league's meetings, they probably talked about scheduling. I don't know how quickly we're going to get it. Maybe sometime in June. Will we get that? And I know for some fans, especially Binghamton fans, because Binghamton fans travel really, really well. We had Binghamton fans down in Mississippi for the Mississippi Seawolves series. I know the Thrashers went down there, and I know of a few other fans that made the trip down to Mississippi for those games. And so it'll be interesting because I know fans are going to look forward to it because they will plan their trips. I know you and Jeremy have gone to Watertown and Danbury. Did you guys go to Blue Ridge?
We went for Friday and Saturday. We
That's
missed
right.
all the fun on Sunday.
You missed all the fun on Sunday. That's right. You did go down because we talked about how you were going to do the impact players, and so on. So that's a good point. So you were down there. What other locations have you traveled to?
We've gone to Michigan for Motor City. Okay. I don't think we gone out for Port Huron. Maybe we have for one game. I can't quite remember.
Have you guys been in Elmira when Elmira was in the league?
Yeah, and that was last season when everyone disliked going to Danbury because of their fans. I actually disliked going to Elmira for the fans.
Really?
I would choose going to Danbury over most others.
I know you guys joked about actually getting season tickets in Watertown just so they couldn't tell you couldn't sit in a certain spot, but you actually mentioned to me that, listen, I'll go watch a lot of games in Danbury.
Yeah, we have a good time in Danbury. We've made a good group of friends out there. We befriended the really rowdy crowd right behind the bench, so they really like us, and they make our visit really well.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what did go on yesterday, which was the expansion draft, and good for Binghamton. Only 2 players got selected. Talk a little bit about that.
I'm surprised that only 2 of our players got selected. It did shock me a little bit, being that we had won the finals. But as most people know, Don Olivieri got drafted to Topeka along with Chris Mott. Mm-hmm. And Don has always been a great player for us. He played 76 games with 48 goals and 67 assists for 113 points. And then in the playoffs, he played 20 games for 9 goals and 12 assists for 21 points. And he was excellent in the playoffs.
This year, yeah.
And he was great all year, but
Yeah.
the playoffs, he really shined.
Yeah, I agree. What about Chris Mott's production?
He also obviously got drafted to Topeka. He played 40 games with 15 goals and 13 assists for 28 points. And then he played 5 games in the playoffs for 1 goal and 1 point.
I gotta say, now you and I listened to Topeka's little podcast that they did, John Clement and Robbie Nichols, kind of talking a little bit about the draft picks that they did. I want to give a big thumbs up to John Clement for trying to really kind of give some really cool coverage to their fans. And it's kind of fun for us to be able to get to see what other teams are saying, sometimes even about our own players like Don Olivieri and Chris Mott. First of all, I will say this. Robbie Nichols had nothing but good things to say about Olivieri and Mott, right? He knows the quality of player that Olivieri is. I think he understands how important that Olivieri is to Binghamton and what the success we've had. But at the same time, I think he thinks that he's going to use Olivieri as trade bait to get somebody else. So what did you make of what we heard today from Robbie Nichols?
Well, as you were talking about the 24 hours previously, a lot of the fan talk was that he made a bad choice in picking Don. And I would have agreed with that statement if he didn't do any kind of research into Don at all.
Right.
And he just picked him because he saw his points, or he's played in the SP and the ECHL, and he's played in the Fed several times. If he just went off of that, then I would agree that he just made a bad pick. But after listening to that video, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And if Don wants to come back and play for another season, or he wants to retire, that's, still up in the air and totally his decision. And everyone, I think, would be okay with whatever he chose. But I think he's definitely using that to try to leverage getting somebody of equal talent, as he said in his little video there.
And equal talent was very interesting to me, right? Because Tyson Kirkby's not going to be traded for Don Olivieri. And something that before we started talking, when we, even before I called you, I have to say that one of the things I thought of was like, wait a second here. Don isn't just a good player, and you're not going to get an equal swap for him, right? So say Coach Sherwood goes and has a conversation with Don, and Don says, "You know what, Sherzy, I want to come back. I want to go for the 3P. God, I just want to do this." Don doesn't play a full season, so it's hard to quantify Don's on the ice play versus someone else. And one of the things that Robbie Nichols said was, well, maybe there's somebody who used to play for me that would want to come play for me out in Topeka. And you did the research, and we all know that that's Gavin Yates. Gavin Yates was on a team in Elmira that Robbie Nichols was associated with, right? And so he was kind of throwing Gavin Yates' name out there without actually mentioning Gavin Yates. And the important part of that is first of all, how in anybody's right mind, and I'm not picking on Robbie Nichols. Listen, he has been in this business for 40 years. He made that perfectly clear in the podcast as well. But Brant Sherwood's not going to go, you know what? Yes, Gavin Yates is the right trade bait to get Don back, right? We're going to trade somebody who's going to play 49, 50 games for us for somebody who will only travel up here for about 30 games, maybe 35 games, right? To me, that didn't make any sense, Taylor.
Yeah, it definitely didn't. As soon as he said for somebody of equal talent, he lost me, because in my own opinion, I don't think anybody honestly matches Don's ability. And I'm just saying, as you said, he doesn't play every game. He plays the home games. He's not there for the practices because he's got his life. Yeah. And he comes up here and he plays the home games, and he's there for the playoffs when the team needs him. And he's done well in other leagues. I don't think you can truly touch his talent with the people we have on our team. And that's nothing against the people on our team. It's just he's well more versed in hockey because he's been in it for so long.
Yeah. And the other thing is, what does this mean for this whole situation? Don's been thinking about retiring. And I've had conversations with Don about retirement. He's also had those conversations with Brant Sherwood. So I realize this is like a strategic thing for Robbie Nichols to go and grab Don, right? And then maybe afterwards he was reading the comments, because I'm sure Robbie Nichols is all over social media, reading everything that you guys are saying, even if he doesn't, like a post or like a comment or a comment back. I'm pretty sure Robbie Nichols is out there, because he mentioned the whole, well, he wants to be a firefighter, or he's a firefighter and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, he's got a life. Like you said, Taylor, he's got a life. He's brand new baby who's only like 12, 14 months old. He's got a full-time job. He's taking care of his family. And this is the best situation. And by the way, Robbie Nichols didn't get Don Olivieri to come play in Binghamton. Brant Sherwood did. And Brant Sherwood is still there. So if Don retires, it was a wasted pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, it sounded like he had a plan in his head when he talked about it, and that he knew what he was doing, and he was kind of trying this big power move, I guess, to maybe pull Brant's leg, or I don't know. But I don't think it was the smartest decision. I mean, our protected list wasn't made public, as you had mentioned earlier, last week or this week. So we don't know who was available to be picked, and we don't know who wasn't.
Yeah.
So maybe he just made the best choice out of who was there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, everybody knows that Brant and I do converse. I didn't ask him who was on the protected list. And I don't think, even if I did ask him, he would tell me. He didn't tell me during the interview. He did mention in the interview that it would not be released. I think Carolina was the only team that released it, correct?
I think so. They're the only ones that I saw.
Yeah. So it was very interesting. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Chris Mott, right? So first of all, both could be traded, like how the team traded for Josh Fletcher last season when he was picked up by Blue Ridge. Okay, fine. That's good. If Chris Mott is not traded for, he could be a second line center for the Scarecrows. I totally think that's a possibility. But if, say, Chris Mott wants to come back to play with Binghamton and Don does retire, I think the trade for Chris Mott becomes a lot easier for Brant, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I definitely think if Mott wanted to come back, it would be done. I think it would be figured out.
Yeah, and the Blue Ridge trade never ended up being for a player. When they did it, it was future considerations, and I believe it ended up just being some sort of cash value. And I think that could happen for Chris Mott as well. Again, I said to you personally off air, Chris Mott and Cam Clark were two of the people I didn't want to be picked up. I really wanted to see their second year development in Binghamton.
Yeah, I do remember having that conversation, and I think there's a lot of people that would agree. Mott and Clark they meshed so well together they were awesome to watch on the ice.
All right, so talk a little bit about the roster. What should fans expect now that that's over with? We do not know at this point, as we are talking. It is 9:03 at the moment on Thursday. We don't know if Binghamton picked up anybody in the dispersal draft, but what does this really truly do for our roster?
Well, as you said earlier, we had only lost 2 players for the draft, which was Don and Chris Mott. So we had 24 players originally with 19 regulars, but we had our 5 college players. So if Don does retire, or if he chooses to, not that it would happen, but if he went out there to play, or if Chris Mott decides to play in Topeka, we would have our roster. Like we wouldn't really need to worry about our players.
Yeah, and barring other than Don retiring, no one else retires as well. The team comes back with a full slate of guys. Now, there's probably a couple guys that are getting up there in age, like Kyle Steffen, maybe he's thinking about whatever he's going to do. Maybe he decides, you know what, screw it, I'm going to come back. This is a good situation. But you have one of the guys who's been playing for a very long time on the team, Gavin Yates, who could seriously consider retiring. Listen, he's won 3 championships. He's won 2 MVPs. There's no shame in him walking away. But, I mean, it seemed like at the celebration party, everyone was like, let's do 3. Let's go for 3. And I would have a hard time believing that Gavin isn't going to take a serious look at coming back for his 5th season in Binghamton, which he's told me personally that he's felt so connected with this city, this team, these fans. I think it'd be very difficult. I think if he knew that everybody, the majority of the core of this team was coming back, and say Connor McAnanama doesn't sign that NHL contract that Brant Sherwood told him he couldn't sign, because to me that was hilarious when he said that in the celebration. I think you got a good chance of the majority. Like, I'm talking about, like, not just 14, 15 guys like last year, like even more than that. And that at the end of the day, when the season starts, Brant might have to send someone home or trade him away or whatever, because you can only have 19 guys on the roster.
Yeah, I remember like the beginning of this season when we had a man extra, or what are we going to do when this person comes back? Because we had a couple call ups. It was definitely a lot of talks, because every fan loves and it's so nice to know that all of the guys on the team just love playing here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anytime you talk to any of them, they'll mention the fans. They'll talk about Brant. They'll talk about the team. There's just such a love for Binghamton that none of these guys seem like they want to leave.
It is true. All right. So I'm going to throw a couple questions at you. Who do you think is the first person that re-signs with Binghamton? Who do you think is going to be the first announcement that person is re-signed?
I'm going to say Tyson.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of agree.
I think Tyson for sure. I think because Brant already said he's coming back, so that's already done.
Yeah.
I think if Tyson says he's coming back, and if Gavin decides I think it's just going to start a domino effect of just everyone wanting to come back.
Okay, so you think Gavin will be the first person. Do you think that we'll play? I'm going to ask you this. All right, so there's 7 teams in the Empire Division, okay? So there's 6 teams that we could play against, and we'll more than likely play against no matter what, right? Because they're in our division. We got to play at least every team in our division at least 2 times, right? I would say. Even though Port Huron, that was a Port Huron once or somebody like that a couple years ago. But either way, so do we play more than 8 teams in the league? Like, there's 14 teams in the league. We can play up to 13 different teams. Do we play more than 8 teams? So 6 teams in our division and at least 2 more or more teams from the Continental Division.
I think it's possible. I don't know how many more. I think it's going to depend on the traveling, because I mean last year we played Carolina, Athens, and Columbus in Mississippi.
Yeah.
So do we keep playing
That's 10
Columbus
teams.
and Athens? I think Carolina is a definite, just because they're the next closest in the Continental Division. Otherwise, maybe Athens, maybe Columbus, depending on how our division works out and how many times we play each other.
Mm-hmm. And let's see here. What other question do I have for you before we move on to the Brant interview? Do you think Brant's job this summer, with only losing Don and Chris Mott's rights at the moment, is easier or tougher based on what you thought it might have been before going into the expansion draft?
I don't know if it would be easier or tougher, because I feel like Brant's the kind of coach that's constantly looking for talent. He's constantly out there scouting or figuring things out. So I feel like he's always doing that, whether we have a full roster or whether we have no guys. So I don't know if it's any different. I think he'll probably just kind of take it with a piece of salt and just kind of, it's a normal day for him, to be honest.
Yeah, probably still looking and always recruiting and looking out there. All right, well, that leads us into, obviously, the interview with Brant Sherwood. Folks, enjoy this. This is going to be a really good, other than what you've already heard, which is about 8 minutes of the 50-minute long interview that I did with Brant. We just kept talking. I just kept asking questions. He kept answering them, and it's really good. So Taylor and I will be back on the other side of this interview with Brant Sherwood, and you are listening to the Power Play Post Show.
Hi, this is Don Biggs from the 92-93 Binghamton Rangers. Hi, this is Brandon Buczynski.
This is Grady Wittenberg, the voice of the Binghamton Senators, and you're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
Here is another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive with Bob Howard.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. This gentleman has decided to go 110, 26, and 11 in the regular season since he took over as the head coach for the Binghamton Black Bears, and he's 17-3 with 2 titles now as well. And he gave us this little quote during the celebration of the Binghamton Black Bears' second cup victory. Let's take a listen.
This cup ain't leaving, neither am I,
baby. He is, of course, the head coach of the Binghamton Black Bears. He is Brant Sherwood. Brant, was that a planned statement? Because it seemed like you paused for about 3 or 4 seconds, you collecting your thoughts a little bit, and then you kind of walked over to the cup, put your hand on the cup, and you kind of said that. Was that something that kind of like just came to you on the moment?
Yeah, that flew off the hip, and Andreas and I had a conversation before the celebration, and we worked out like a deal coming back, and I just kind of wanted the fans to know that like we're gonna have a similar group back next year, and we're gonna try to repeat again.
That's crazy to think that this team could potentially look very similar to the team that obviously has just, won the second championship. First of all, congratulations. Welcome back to the show. And thank you for giving me your time today, because I know that as fans, we are recording this here on Monday. You're probably going to hear this Wednesday evening and or Thursday evening, depending on the results of the expansion draft and the things of that nature. But Brant, you're going to be heading down to the meetings, the league meetings that will be happening this week down in Athens, Georgia. So there had to have been a plan coming into even championship weekend for you to come back, knowing that you're going to be heading down, obviously, for these league meetings as well.
Yeah, there's no place I'd rather be. This is ultimately the best choice for myself, my family, and I love working with these guys. But I'm excited to go down to the meetings and contribute as much as I can to help this league progress. This will be my first league meeting. Last year I wasn't able to go. I think we headed out pretty quickly after the season. We ended up going on a little vacation to Europe, and it was chaotic. But yeah, these seasons extended pretty long. It's a quick turnaround, and back to work today.
So let me ask you this question. The team went 49-6-1. I don't think anybody imagined that when you said, okay, we want to do at least one better than 39 wins from the first championship season. And you guys, did that times 10, right? So you guys obviously got 49 wins. The regular season itself, was that unmanageable that you could hit 851%, like an 851 winning percentage? That's just crazy.
Yes, it's unimaginable for myself. But you asked that group in there, I think they thought they should win every game. And I love that mentality by them. I'm there to remind them that maybe some of those wins could have been losses, and that we always need to be working on our game. But Yeah, that was, the most extraordinary season I've ever been a part of. It was something truly special. That the 18 game winning streak, you usually see like, 9, 10, 11, but the fact that we got up to 18 was just wild. Yeah, so proud of these guys, their accomplishments, even in the regular season. It says a lot about that room. And I think, what it comes down to is just having a lot of that core back and gaining experience from winning. I know we were kind of chatting last night, and I told you I wanted Toronto, but Toronto doesn't know how to win.
No.
And you got to go through those growing pains of learning it. And I think we did it our first year together when we lost to Danbury in the North Division Finals. But you could tell last night with Florida, they just that's an experienced team, similar guys, and they kind of don't bat an eye. There's not a lot of pressure coming to them. They just know how to get it done.
When we talked about Florida and Toronto, I think I hemmed hawed and gave you both teams as an answer of who could win. But what it came really down to is the culture in Toronto isn't that they're, bad teams or bad players or whatever. The culture, it hasn't been winning yet. And Florida, that's the culture. That's what you've also built in Binghamton as well, is a culture of not just great guys in the locker room, but they should be there to win hockey games as well.
Yeah, I think they're talking about it on the broadcast. I think the kind of what changed their culture, because Florida was a really good team until Matthew Tkachuk showed up, and they had a great power play, but they would have first-round exits, second-round exits. And then they started building around that one guy. And I look at Tyson Kirkby that same way as Matthew Tkachuk. As far as, doing the right things in all areas of the ice and, always doing what's best for the team. And it's kind of built around him, and those guys follow it. And, they got a lot of dogs down there. And I feel like we got a lot of dogs in our locker room as well.
So obviously going into the playoffs, obviously the anticipation is obviously how is this team going to win? And then they go and they shut out 4 times in the playoffs. They're I think the only time they gave up more than 2 goals in a game was the 3-0 loss in Port Huron. They lose that one game, but overall, this is like an A+ playoff, still like last year, and winning a championship. Your thoughts overall on those 8 games that you guys played?
I guess to harp on the defense a bit. I thought, we kind of learned this in Athens. And even during my suspension, I got the bird's eye view, and I got to see our game a lot. And kind of what was written on the board every day was limit odd man rushes. Those are the times we really got beat, was on 2-on-1s, breakaways, and stuff like that. And those are obviously high scoring chances. But if we could limit it to 3-on-2s with some good back pressure coming through the neutral zone, we were pretty safe in most instances. So I'd say team defense was, it was stellar. Our D zone, we sacrificed a little bit more. We won races to the wall. We were able to break up plays pretty quickly and then exit our zone pretty easily with, close proximity of just those little 5-foot passes and stuff. But I think we all know the main catalyst is CMAC.
Yeah.
Kind of holding it down. That's a performance that's just unheard of. I've seen a couple goalies, do it. I played with this kid, Austin Rodebush in Roanoke, and he did it the following year after I left and just kind of stood on his head and would steal games. And, I couldn't be, more happy with Connor's performance during the playoffs. It was lights out, and, the 1-0 win in Carolina, those shutouts against Port Huron at home. It was, spectacular. The guy's a stud.
It was. And Coach, I've said many times here on this show that I feel like from last year to this year, the team defense has improved. That's not to take away what CMAC did this year with 8 shutouts between the regular season and the playoffs, but just overall limiting the odd man rushes, right? Because I think we saw more of that last year when you guys won the championship than this year, than winning the championship. It happened. I think it happens to every team in every season, but it was greatly reduced from 2 years ago to this year. So can you talk a little bit about the team defense? Because it seemed like everybody bought in a little bit more to playing a little bit better defense, and it didn't really hurt the offense.
No, it really didn't. And I said this a couple times throughout the year. There's these magnificent defensive plays that lead to our offense. It starts in our zone. Mm-hmm. And when I'm showing video, if I'm showing something positive, like a goal for, it starts 45 seconds ahead of time. And I don't take away from the goal scorer. We love our goal scorers. We love guys that can put the puck in the net when they get the opportunity. But I would harp on the guy that made the defensive play and kind of started it, whether it was a big save and, a good first pass to exit the zone, or maybe a good puck protection play when a guy's coming on you on the forecheck and then escaping a little bit easier, whether it was wheeling the net. And that goes for our D. I really like defensemen that can, push the pace of play as far as carrying the puck from one zone to the other. And we got a lot of those. And it's been a little bit, I guess, a part of our formula of moving some forwards back to D, and they can see the whole ice in front of them. They can scan it a little easier, so they're able to navigate it and make these little plays, and then hop up in the play and be kind of that second layer of attack. But I think with our team defense, it's just we kind of did the same system for 2.5 years now. Mm-hmm. Having the same guys come back, it's just second nature. We worked on our communication a little bit for our releases and, middle bumps, or if we wanted up the wall. So right. There was a little bit better communication, but overall, I think it was, a lot of it was visual, just knowing where guys are going to be, and, a little bit easier to predict.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong on this? The forecheck was better this year as well.
I do think so, and especially in playoffs, mm-hmm. Where we when we ran into trouble in Port Huron, maybe our F1 was doing a good job of cutting the ice in half and forcing them up one side, but then our F2 and F3 weren't getting up the ice, so we could break up those plays. It was kind of, the spacing was off, and once we kind of made that adjustment, and I was like, hey, we have to pressure their D and kind of let them, make mistakes so that we can capitalize off it. Mm-hmm. But they forechecked super hard. We had a good F1 and F2. F1, we just want them breaking up the play, getting first touch on puck. And we're not necessarily trying to blow someone up. We want the puck back. That's our whole game. It's just possession, and then we can work our kind of rotations in the O zone. But it was a spectacular run as far as our forecheck goes.
Did Port Huron give you the best opponent's forecheck? In other words, was their forecheck the best you saw throughout the season?
Yeah, by far. I don't want to, rip into the South, but I guess I will. I think there's fake physicality down there, okay. And I think it's more of a country club style, and maybe it's just playing up north. I think it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit grittier. I don't know if it's the weather or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. But Port Huron, they forecheck hard. Danbury, they forecheck hard. I will say Athens, they were a tough customer in that department. But okay. Some of the video I watch, I kind of shake my head at some teams because they're super talented.
Yeah.
But I'm they're really not trying on the fort. They're kind of fake trying. They're look at me, I'm hustling type of deal. But are they really wanting to break up a play? Are they do they have desperate sticks to really, do that extended reach to, disrupt the puck? And, I really didn't see that from Columbus. I didn't see it from Carolina, especially Carolina's first game on the road on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
We were coming out of our zone like a piece of cake. It was super easy. We were coming up the ice together, and our D weren't getting hit. Now they turned it around the next night, and I thought they did a great job at it. But you just can't pick and choose your moments. You got to be doing that the entire time.
No, without a doubt. Let me talk to you and ask you your opinion on certain players from this team this season. Let's first talk about, because if I don't, Les Sirota will probably kick my ass or come down here and kick my ass. Well, we need to talk about Zach Sirota, right? Because whether he was the 10th forward, the 11th forward, whether he was slotted in the right wing third line, wherever he was, he seemed to make an impact every single game. From being a rat in front of the net, doing something that Austin Thompson was doing for a good time, for a very good time. Can you talk a little bit about Zach and his performance, being a rookie and coming in and doing what he did this year?
Zach had to earn it times 10, and a lot of guys have to do that in our lineup. Chris Mott, Josh Fletcher, even Clarkey too.
Yeah.
But Sirota, I'm a fan of his. When he first came in, he wasn't getting a lot of points, but I liked his game. I liked his feistiness. I liked his spirit and puck battles, and not giving up on the play. There's something about a smaller guy that can steal a puck from a 6'2" defenseman that just I love it. And he there's something that goes, I think, a little unnoticed with his game. He is so skilled. He's crafty around the net. He can make slip plays at the blue line. He can protect the puck very well. He can kind of stick handle in a phone booth type of deal. But yeah, Sirota was kind of our spark plug. He kind of was the replacement for Andrew Logar.
Yeah.
And I think he's a little bit faster. I think Logs had a little bit more craftiness with his hands to his game, but both very similar, and helped us throughout the year through the playoffs. And I couldn't be more proud of Zach. And he was just, he came to his own. He won the guys over. There's a couple captains meetings where we're talking about, who should we put in the lineup, and kind of, getting opinions from our leadership group. And I half the room was always sticking up for him. And we need this guy in the lineup. We need, a lot of guys liked him, and they noticed it. And the stat sheet doesn't reflect who Zach Sirota is, his impact in the playoffs. I think the whole fan base knows it, and we're so happy to have him, and he wants to come back as well. And I just expect a much bigger role for him going forward.
Yeah, Coach, that's the reason. One of the reasons why we created the Impact Players on the Power Play Post Show Facebook group was to talk about sometimes guys who don't get the points, right? But are doing stuff in the games that really have an impact. I thought this year, and you can kind of talk about these two guys kind of in tandem, other than Zach Sirota, but you talk about Jesse Anderson and Dan Weber, what they did together this year as a duo, or even separately sometimes when they were on different D-line pairings. Both of those guys, I thought, made great improvements in their D game this season.
Yeah. First, so just go with Jesse Anderson. That kid, I think he's probably second on the team as far as gaining zones, from, carrying the puck from the defensive zone all the way to the offensive zone. He likes to pop up in the play, but, more importantly, he's a puck pusher, and he'll kick it out at the right time, and, drive that middle lane and pull guys towards them. And it might open up something in that second layer. But Ando, his whole game is skating and, creating stuff off the rush. He could really if a defender was on him and like, let's say a puck's getting tossed back in our zone, he would gain that net and then he'd be out. And you have one guy beat, there's going to be a 2-on-1 somewhere that he's going to be able to create off. And that Ando, he's tenacious when he's skating with the puck, but also the same thing on the D side. He sucks to deal with in the corners in front of the net, angling through the neutral zone. And yeah, he definitely a guy that flies under the radar, but is really appreciated in our locker room. And then with Weber, I think he's got one of the best sticks in the league. He can really break up plays. I think Weebs might be a little bit better at angling through the neutral zone, especially on our PK forecheck.
Yeah.
He would break up plays all the time. And it's, we do a little pre-scout who you want to pick up in the neutral zone and see if you can break up that middle play. I think I counted at least 20 to 30 times he did that throughout the year. And that's just crushing power plays if they can't get out of their zone with a clean breakout. He was tremendous at that. Then, both those guys, but Dan, he became more of a prick this year to deal with.
Yes.
I heard you talking about throwing his glove after the celebration. He's a character. He always keeps it light. And both him and Ando, they hold themselves accountable. They're such great teammates. But Dan's pretty crafty with skating the puck as well. His puck handling got a little bit better. And those are two guys that played forward once upon a time. A lot of people don't know, but Dan Weber played forward a couple of years in college.
Yep.
And I think it's just a hidden thing that we got going on. I hope too many other teams catch on to it, but I really like converting these forwards to D, especially when you have a stacked, unit up front. We had to do it with Scotty, and Scotty was the one that came to me. If you ever need me on defense, I played a little bit back in the day. And Emerson Emery did the same thing as well when Dan Stone went down at Danbury. But we're these guys, and I almost wish I was a defenseman when I played, because it you see the game a little differently, and you have a little space, and if you have decent backward skating and you start doing some of the D drills, and Dakota Bond and Dan Stone and Jesse Anderson take you under your wing, it's it's going to happen. They're going to learn a lot. You just have to be a little patient with it. But those kind of three guys converting from forward to D is just shows their overall capabilities of playing the game in any position.
So obviously you heard me talk about Dan Weber throwing his gloves. So that means you also heard me say that Dan Weber was on the ice at the end of both championship games, game threes, in 2024 and 2025. Was there a conscious decision on your part to have Dan Weber out there? Last year, it was 2 years ago, it was with Mathieu Boullard. And of course, this time it was with Jesse Anderson. Was there a strategy there to have him on the ice at the end versus Dakota Bond and Dan Stone, who are arguably the number one D pair in the league?
There's no strategy there. I'm sorry to say that, Weaver. When you have five defensemen, you just got to go with who's fresh, and it just happened to work out that way in the rotation.
Yeah,
and that was kind of the same thing as last year, because I don't know if you remember Dakota Bond. He was playing on a bad leg.
Yep.
He was basically limping up the ice and would, maybe do a 5-on-5 shift, but mostly it was just QB in the power play.
Yep.
And when you get down to 5D, you just got to go with who's fresh. And I trust all those guys. I could have put out our third line, quote unquote, for that last shift as well. And I think we got that throughout our whole team. We got a ton of depth, and these guys know what to do in these tight situations.
Before we talk about the future, let's talk a little bit about a couple of key players on this team this year. Don Olivieri and CJ Stubbs, I think, brought so much experience and so much to this team that people probably didn't have on any of the other teams, maybe Garrett Milan in Athens. But even, we talk about Johnny Ruiz, who's a good player, and we talk about Trevor Lord, who's a good player. They don't have what, Garrett Milan and CJ Stubbs and Don Olivieri can bring to their teams. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of Stubbsy and Ollie to this team?
Yeah. Just, both of them, veteran experience, know how to win, know how to play the right way. Mm-hmm. And I'll start with Stubbsy. That, to be able to pick up a guy like that, and I was, he reached out to me, but I was able to convince him, and I pitched a lot of hey, this is going to be good for your body. I'll give you the Mondays off, and whenever you need a break type of deal, I'm willing to work with you and just give me your full effort, mm-hmm. in practice when you're there and on the weekends. And we're so lucky to have him. And his playmaking ability is, off the charts for this league. I think like 20 plus goals in about 40 games. That's, a goal every other game. And he makes his, line mates better around him. He's really good at protecting the puck and fending off guys, much like Kirkby does. Just having a guy on your back and still being able to make a play. It's we're very lucky to have Stubbs, and his championship pedigree carried over with us. Now he got a title when I was with him in Columbus for the COVID year. Yep. He's got a title in the FPHL, and now he's got a title here. And he knows what it takes as far as, playing the right way. His forecheck, if, you notice how he angles and breaks up plays. His stick is awesome. He'll bait you in and then be able to get a piece of the puck. Mm-hmm. That's I think one of his best attributes. And then also his PK, him and Tyson were my go-to for F1 and F2 on the first PK unit. And they sell out, they block shots. They just ultimate sacrifice for, wanting to win games. And then Ollie, I'm smiling thinking about Ollie, because he's just such an offensive guru. He's so fun to watch, gets your heart rate going sometimes with the riskiness, but man, it really pays off. I'm so happy Don's been here for now the past 2.5 years. I was able to, convince him when I first got hired here, and we kind of it's not weird, but it's we do treat it as a business. But he was one of my best buddies when I played, and he's still my best buddy. But I just think about the Port Huron series. Mm-hmm. I didn't really challenge the group, but I challenged him specifically. Right. And I couldn't be more proud of him, just putting the team on his shoulders. That next day I checked in with him, because I was pretty hard with him, and it sucks because I don't want to, piss off a buddy, but I'm ultimately just trying to do what's best for the team. When I saw him the next morning, he's like, "No, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go." He said, "I'm going to have 3 tonight." I thought he meant goals, but he had 3 assists.
He did. Three primary assists too.
Yeah. He created everything. He did. And, some guys in that situation, they might just kind of say, all right, screw off. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And they might pout going into that game. He was determined, and, he handled it so well. And that's the type of veteran leadership we need. I really thought him and C-Mac kind of took over that series where, mm-hmm. Stubbs, he had his big moments in the Watertown series, that PK goal. But also, these guys contributed in the finals as well. It's just everyone kind of had their moments. But Don, that Saturday game in Port Huron, I get choked up about it, because it was so cool. It was just it was awesome to see my buddy do that and like really put the team on his shoulders and help the teammates around him. That's what he's here for. And, I hope to get Don back again next year.
Really?
There's, some decisions that have to be made. Maybe it's a little less. Maybe he's more of an emergency guy, but Don always has a spot in Binghamton, and I know the fans love him. I love him, and his teammates love him as well.
He's been great. I think I understand, your guys' relationship, because I feel like as, a guy who is 52 years old and I'm closer to Don's age than I'm closer than anybody else's age. Right. And that there's a kind of respect and even an admiration between he and I. And not many times do I get off of an interview and he says thank you, or a player says thank you to me for the interview. And I've built that kind of special bond a little bit with Ollie as well. I'll be honest with you. And he's I asked him last year, hey, are you done? And he kind of looked at me and he kind of smiled and he kind of laughed. And I think he already knew, no, I'm coming back. Right. This year when I waited until a little bit later on in the celebration, and I kind of talked to him and he kind of smiled and he goes, Bob, I got a lot to think about. I got a real lot to think about. And, I think when you hear Gavin Yates go up there, and I'm waiting for the Gavin Yates announcement of like, all right, I'm done. I've done so much. He's won 2 MVPs. He's won 3 championships. I'm just waiting for it. And then he goes up there and goes, all right, let's go for 3. It's like, you hear that from these veterans, and because it's the hardest decision in the world to make for an athlete is to retire. That is the worst and hardest decision. And you don't want a athlete or, a hockey player to retire because they had to, but because they were ready to, right? And you understand that.
Yeah, 100%. It sucks, Bob. Like, I went through a tough time after I retired, but ultimately, like, my body couldn't hold up anymore.
Mm-hmm.
4 surgeries in 3 summers for my last year of pro. These guys are probably sick of hearing it if they're listening, but I remind these guys that I played through some injuries. But ultimately, like, I feel like when you're done, you need something lined up. You need to be thinking throughout the year about like what the next move is, and if you don't have that prepared, then it's like, why, kind of like, what's making you leave? If your body's good to go, you're getting treated well, you have a nice apartment, you're having fun, and living rent free. I think we give these guys the ability to save some money to keep them afloat in the summer, and a lot of these guys, they have their summer gigs, whether it's like coaching, landscaping, whatever it might be. And, if they're having fun, like, I understand it gets to a certain point where, a girl, or like you want to start a family or whatever it might be. But for even mine and Don's situation, like, Binghamton's pretty close. I'm able to bounce back and forth. Don's able to, contribute without practicing. So he's there with his family most of the week and, making ends meet with his other job. And, I feel like if you're on the fence, you should probably keep playing until, like, all right, maybe you go into that next year. This is my last year, and I'm going to have a job lined up for June, because we tend to play in hockey in May a lot of the time. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. And with Gavin Yates, man, I think he's inching towards coming back, and I would be ecstatic. I think he's going to come back, but I love to hear these guys say that, and it'll be fun to see a lot of similar faces in the fall, and it just carries that culture of what we've built over the past 2.5 years. We're very lucky to have returners like that, and it goes to show you, like, Andreas really takes care of these guys. Mm-hmm. And they're happy. Like, sometimes when you leave the game, you're a little disgruntled. You feel like you might have got like screwed over in a sense, or like, man, I really need to like make some money or like move on or like what.
Mm-hmm.
We have such a fun environment, and all the players tend to be very happy. And I think it is kudos to our ownership.
The fans showed up this year, like crazy showed up. 4,300 fans on average in Binghamton for the 29 games that you guys played at home. And then, of course, going into the playoffs, each round got better and better and better. And, of course, 5,013 fans saw the championship game. I know you've talked to a lot of the fans. What can you say to the fans about the support that they gave the team this year?
Thank you. I love our fan base. When I first came in,
I know
it was kind of harsh, and I wasn't used to that. From being a former player, I was usually like the fan favorite where I played, and getting the girls criticized. I had to learn how to deal with that, and it's. Now I'm a little bit more numb, but also my teammate or my players, they make my life a little easier. But I would rather have a passionate fan base that cares about winning and shows up every night than a fan base that's quiet, doesn't care, doesn't really I guess know the game. Not that some of the fans in the South, they're knowledgeable of it, I guess, but I don't think it's like the Binghamton hockey fans. There's stuff that I'll mention as far as hockey terminology, and they'll be able to pick it up, and I'm like, holy crap! Like, some D zone coverage, or what a regroup is, or whatever it might be. So, as far as our fans go, I love where the relationship has gone. Andrea says it all the time. It's becoming a family, and what for me, it's kind of the messages I get. Sometimes the players and I we get some letters, and you might have changed someone's life without knowing it, and that really touches the heart of a lot of our guys. Like there was a letter I got the other day, and like. Someone was going through a hard time, and the Black Bears got them out of that, and that's what this community is all about, is like picking each other up, and that's how our locker room culture is. And I think it's spread out throughout the community. Like you can run into these guys in like a grocery store or wherever, and they'll talk to you for 4 to 5 minutes, and take a little time out of their day to just like relate with a fan. And I think it goes a long way, and it keeps fans coming back. And I couldn't be, happier with how this relationship's gone with the fans and players. It's unbelievable. And we truly have something special, and the guys feed off their energy, and it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Without a doubt. The protected list, the dreaded protected list that, some teams release, some teams don't release. It's the worst. I think it's the worst day when teams do release it for the fans, because the fans are like, oh my God, they didn't protect this guy, or they didn't protect this guy, or whatever. It's a hard thing, right? I mean, I know Binghamton has released it the last 3 years. But no one, I mean, all the fans can, I'll say it this way, whine and cry all they want about who's on there, who's not on there. No one has a harder time with the protected list than Brant Sherwood. And it's because he has to make those decisions, and he's close to these guys. He loves all these guys, right? Was it really difficult to make the list this year? I know it's a loaded question, and it's a horrible question, but was it very difficult this year to put 12 guys on a piece of paper?
Yeah, I think any year for any coach, I think it's super hard when you're looking at the future of who you're going to protect. And I think it's especially hard for teams that go deep in the playoffs, because a lot of these guys, like even for myself, I haven't watched the game back yet. It's kind of hard to digest everything after you win and kind of look back on everything. But for these guys, our season ended on Friday night, and they have to come up with the best calculated decision, whether they're coming back or not on a Tuesday. And they might have not have talked to even their family about coming back, their significant other, or maybe their boss in the summer, or like whatever it might be. So it's kind of hard to gauge that. And with guys like Ollie, Yates, like some of our older guys that, you want to come back, and they're kind of like, they're giving you these percentages of like, 60% I'm coming back. And I'm like, all right, like, what
the hell does that do for me?
Let's see what I can work with. And then there's guys that are like 100% coming back, and that's an easy decision, to throw them on the protected list. But I think they're just like, this is my opinion on the protected list. I just think there should be some type of threshold where, some of these two teams that are coming in, they're basically getting handed a roster.
Sure.
And it takes the recruiting out of it. And I feel like a lot of us coaches have put in the hard work to, get these players, and they're just kind of benefiting off it. Like I believe in parity, but also at the same time, like if you pick a Binghamton player and they go to, let's say it's Indiana.
Sure.
They don't have the housing set up. They don't have practice jerseys. Maybe they don't have a skate sharpener.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have like the amenities that we have. And do you really want to bring in a Black Bear in there to do all the comparisons from what he just came from?
Yeah.
And is he going to be happy with the situation and all that stuff? And that's kind of what I ran into last year with a lot of the guys that got picked up.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, it's a nightmare for them. Like guys getting picked up by Blue Ridge. It's like they're getting sent to like, I don't know, like the Tallahassee Warthogs. It's like it's a nightmare of a situation. And, I'll do my best to, trade for them. But then sometimes these organizations overvalue, their own players, or they're like, hey, like some guys didn't even play, like Fitzy. He just didn't even show up to Athens. So you hope these teams do the due diligence. But I think that with this year, we didn't put out the protected list because we're not going to help another team like figure it out so easily. Like there's guys that are unprotected that are retiring, and I don't want to disclose that information. Yeah, because hopefully they pick the retired guy, and we get to keep a lot of our guys. So there's a little playfulness with it. Yeah, but ultimately, if a guy doesn't want to play there, I'll do my best to trade for them back. But if a team's asking for the farm for it, it's like it becomes a tough scenario. So I just hope there's some understanding, and I'm willing to help out other teams, I have a whole list of recruits that, probably won't make our roster, that like I can help them out in that sense as far as building a foundation. So that's something that should be interesting, working out, next week, whoever gets picked off our, unprotected list. So unprotected lists, they suck, and you want to keep everyone, and it's unfortunate, but it is a part of the game, and we need to make these other teams a little bit more competitive. I just think, like each team getting 12 players, that's basically you have a whole team, and it's like, come on, like let's get some fresh blood in there, and let's get a little elbow grease, and start making the calls yourself to college teams or juniors, or maybe convincing some SP players to, come down.
So this is the first year that you're going to be, by the time fans are going to listen to this, you're going to already be at the league meetings. What is your hope of going to league meetings? What are you hoping to share, and what are you hoping to get out of the meetings yourself?
There's a few things. I think, one of the things that we really wanted to harp on is having a travel day. For playoffs, like the Port Huron series. And I think Grammer and Johnny over there will probably agree to this now after, seeing their play from the first night to the second night. Like they had 0 legs, and you kind of want the best performance on both sides. So Andreas and I, we just kind of came up with a few things, and it's like, if it's over 6 hours, there should probably be a travel day in between. Now, if the teams agree and they're like, hey, like we can just do it all in one shot, that's totally fine. Like us playing Watertown or us playing Danbury, that's like, within close proximity, it's like, it makes sense to do Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But like for the Port Huron series, I really felt that game should have been on a Thursday. So then everyone can travel back, safely and like give their bodies a break and kind of have that extra day of recovery of, it's all about looking out for the players. And I think that's what Andreas and I like take pride in the most, is like making sure these guys are ready to go and given any advantage as far as their bodies go. So that sleeper bus helped a whole lot, and it crushed Port Huron because they weren't the same team on Saturday and Sunday. It's a tough turnaround, and if you don't have the right things in place, it could be the end of your season. So yeah, we want a travel day, whether it's over a certain mileage or however many hours away. I think that broadcast and streaming is going to be a hot topic.
Oh yeah,
not really my cup of tea, but I think we need to, come up with some package, whether it's with YouTube or Flow Hockey or, doing our own platform of some sort. Like I'm interested to see what that entails. So I'm sure some guys have some ideas, but I think what separated our league from other leagues is, not having to pay. And I think it attracted just more fans in that sense. So yeah, looking forward to that. We got to send a lot of notes to Brooksy. So we'll be jotting some stuff down, and then
Brooksy's not going to be there.
No, he's not going to be. It's going to be Trevor, Bobby, and I.
Oh wow!
So we got a good mix of guys, and we're excited to go to Athens. Get some warm weather too. But also, I'm excited to hear, from other people how they operate and stuff like that. Maybe we can save money in some areas. And there's also there's a lot of vendors too, like Warrior Hockey comes down, like some apparel companies and stuff. So you might be able to pick up some stuff on that. I think slotting too is going to be like another topic that I want to bring up. I think you want teams to be competitive and you want to keep it fair, but I'm looking at some of the guys with like the most slotting points. Vasilev and Danbury playing the KHL for over 200 games. Like, yeah, I think he's a good player. Do I think he's better than Kirkby, Stubbs, Dahmer, Olivieri, Yates? Like, no.
Yeah.
And our guys have, less points than him. Do I think it's good for that Vasilev to be in the league? Hell yeah. Like 100%. I think the more, experienced guys we can bring into the league just creates more attention. Same thing with that Jimmy Lodge guy up in Watertown. Yeah. Like playing the AHL draft pick. That's good for the league. We shouldn't, punish
players.
Players for and even helping make the league look good. Like now, what I do think is if there's $1,000 going under the table to pay these guys, that's a problem. I think that should be more so be the focus of the kind of what they're paying the players. But as far as the slotting system goes, I think they need to get rid of it because, if you want to be on the same level with the SP or start, getting more call-ups from our league, I think we need to attract those better players and it will just overall grow the entire game of the Fed.
Well, it'll improve the play of the players that are coming in that will likely get that call up, right? So a Dakota Bond would get the call up to the ECHL and not necessarily have to go to the SPHL and then go to the ECHL. You and I have had many conversations about this whole networking and having the right conversations because it isn't necessarily whether or not you're good enough to play in ECHL. It's whether or not Brant Sherwood has a good relationship with maybe a couple ECHL coaches. Networking is a huge part of it. I know last year, the SPHL, when they did their league meetings, the ECHL had representation there. That's something I think that in the future, the Fed needs. When they have their league meetings, they need the ECHL to be there as well.
Well, I think that what you just said there is a big issue with our league is the networking. I think a lot of the people that have been in this league, for a long time, I don't necessarily know their hockey network.
Sure.
I don't know if they're talking to, SPHL coaches, owners, ECHL coaches, owners, etc. Even, people that are working behind the scenes, whether it's ticketing, merchandise, like whatever it might be. And I think in other organizations, they tend to get a little tunnel vision. And then I just see some of the hires of like bringing another Fed coach back, not to label it like Fed, but like, are you tapped into the junior leagues? Are you tapped into like college programs? Like, and I think kind of what separates me from a lot of those organizations or other coaches is like they might not have those connections, and they might only know this league. And I really think if an organization wants to keep up with us, you have to build those relationships. Like Reading trusts us now, like where they kind of went on a limb by, pulling up Kirkby. Not saying that like, oh, that's a risky play. Like we all know Tyson can play in the East Coast Hockey League.
Yeah.
We all know Stubbs, Olivieri. I mean, they've done it. But I don't think they're I think they're kind of stuck in their ways, and like they don't want to hear other ideas, where I'm constantly stealing ideas from other coaches. I'm always like trying to make our team better. Oh, they do that there. I want to do that. Anytime a player comes back from SP or East Coast, I try to pick their brain as much as possible. It's like, what were their practices like? How do they do video?
Yeah.
What system do they run in for the neutral zone forecheck? Like like that's what it, and I'm trying to constantly learn to make our own team better, where like I feel like other coaches and other organizations, they look at what got them successful like 6 years ago within their own organization. It's like, dude, you gotta adapt, you gotta move on, and kind of get with the times.
Well, you and I had this conversation at the beginning of the season, before the season even started, and I think it was off air, wasn't something we talked about. You were excited to have Steve Martinson here because you know how successful he's been in minor league hockey, especially at the ECHL level. I think even at the CHL level as well, way back before you were even born, probably. But because that's how long he's been coaching. But you were even excited about Steve Martinson coming in the league and coaching here.
100%. And when we went down to Athens, I sat with him after each game. Like we didn't really talk much before. Both competitive guys. I think because I was suspended for the first game.
Yep.
And I texted him before the game. I was like, good luck. And he didn't respond. And then I talked to him after. He goes, I never say good luck because I know I don't mean it. And I kind of I was like, you know what? I didn't really mean it either, but I was just trying to be friendly. But there's, I asked him questions too. I want to get advice, and, lucky enough, we've been able to have like Jason Spezza in our locker room, Theo Fleury, and you do the kind of politicking at the start, and then I kind of get down the nitty gritty. What do you see around here? What do you guys do? Like, what do you think we could do to, make our team better? But I stole a couple ideas from Steve by watching their games and stuff. Like, instead of calling a timeout, sometimes he switches the goalies to give his first unit a little bit of a breather. I love that.
That's a trick.
Hopefully I'm not exposing it, so our boy PJ can't pick it up and make that a new rule. You can't do that, but he does some crafty things, and he's a well experienced coach that's had success at so many different levels. Like, why wouldn't you want to hear from him and pick his brain?
All right, before I let you go, because we have gone very long, but this has been a great conversation with you. You're going to probably laugh at this when I ask this question. When do you start getting ready for next year?
Yeah, we already did. Just even start with that, the protection list, and then like
the exit interviews.
You're kind of get a gauge on, what guys want and stuff. Luckily no one asked for $1 million this year, so that's good. That's a good start. But
I'm surprised Weber didn't. I'm surprised Weber didn't, because he's starting to become a little bit of a rock star in Binghamton, and we got to knock him down a peg a little bit. Only because that'll make his father happy, right? And if we make Papa Weebs happy, then that's probably a good thing. So
we'll just get him some more of those gas station sunglasses, and I think he'll be happy. No, we try to give everyone like a little bit of a raise, whether it's like $20, $30, $40, to show that like, hey, we care and you did a good job for us this season. But you just gotta be able to spread it out within the salary cap, and make sure everyone's getting a little bump and not one person's just taking the cake. But as far as like recruiting, like I'll start recruiting like probably June 1st, as far as like picking up like a few pieces that we need to surround the guys that are coming back. But already, like, I have emails from, college coaches, agents, or even just players themselves that want to come play here, that I've been sifting through and, scheduling calls for this upcoming week to kind of see where they're at. Like, I had one kid email me, and I look at his resume and I'm like, holy crap, this kid wants to play here. And part of like his introduction in his email, he just wants to be a part of like a championship caliber team. And now, like in previous years, I kind of had to do a lot of the legwork, and now it's kind of fallen in my lap in a sense.
Right.
Guys are coming to me, and there's SP players that want to come play here and see what we're doing, and it's really starting to turn a tide in professional hockey, and we're getting recognized, and we just have to keep building as a league, and I hope other teams catch on, like, because past 2 years we've kind of ran away with it, and maybe it'd be nice to extend those series a little bit further.
Well, I especially in the championship series these last 2 years, Andreas has only gotten one home game, right? It's like, it'd be nice. I'm not saying I want you guys to lose, and I'm not saying Andreas wants you guys to lose, but hey, 5,000 fans, if they all pay, except for maybe a couple hundred, that's a pretty good payout, right? So
it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
And all we're asking is like, come on, like, let's pick it up. Teams around us. Like, that's it. And I don't want to say it too much, because, obviously we all want to win, and
right.
I don't want to say we want it done easy. Like, I don't think anything was easy this season, but we kind of made it seem that way based on our record. And we want a little bit more competition, and we want the league to grow, and possibly leapfrog the SP.
Coach, this being your exit interview with me, we are satisfied with what you did this year. We would love to have you back. So we're hoping that that is all settled with you and Andreas. And it's just, it's been a pleasure, 2.5 years, being able to talk with you, get to know you, find out the real you before you got fired, which luckily you didn't. I say that I pick on the fans a little bit for doing that, but I have a little bit of a different insight into hockey and minor pro hockey than a lot of the fans do, because they're fans, and I've kind of done this, and I've talked to a lot of coaches. Bob Woods was a coach in Hershey, Pennsylvania with the Hershey Bears, and he gave me a lot of the same insights that you did when it came to talking to me and being on the show and just having conversations even off air, which was a lot of fun. So I kind of got to know how these things kind of work. And before you just go, fire him, get rid of him, for this or that or the other thing, you get to know somebody first. And I really appreciate that you've literally opened up your office door to me. And it's been a phenomenal 2.5 years.
Well, thank you, Bob. And honestly, you've helped me so much, and you've helped this organization and team. You're part of my weekly routine. I know the other guys say this as well, but I get to hear some insight from my players that, I might not normally hear in our hockey setting, but you helped me a ton. And there were some difficult times at the beginning where you were my bridge to the fans, and like you explained my side of, the decision making that went on behind the scenes and what I was trying to build. And, that like you got a friend of me forever. And, I can't thank you enough for, putting the fan base and I together. And it's been a tremendous 2.5 years. And I just can't thank you enough for, what you do for these guys and what you do for the Binghamton Black Bears. It's truly been a pleasure, and I enjoy listening to the podcast every week. I get a chuckle out of it. There's something that, and it kind of gears you up for the weekend. It reminds me of Texas football or Florida football. Sure. When you're on the way to, the coach is on the way to school, he's getting ready for first period, he's listening to radio, and they're either giving him a bunch of crap or praising him and stuff, and it kind of gets you in that mode and gets you ready for the games on the weekend. And I'm sure our players feel the same way. So especially those Whitney Point guys, they got a 20-minute drive down to the rink, and I think a lot of them put you on Thursday morning. And it's Dylan, when I come in the locker room, he's got it blasting in the locker room, and I'm like, wait till you hear this part. It's awesome. It's awesome, and it's amazing coverage what you do. And I know everyone in our organization appreciates it a ton. Yeah,
I appreciate it, Coach. Have a great summer. We'll talk to you, obviously. I mean, you and I will text, but we'll talk to you, obviously, as we get closer to the season here on the Power Play Post Show. And I'll tell you, like you said to Connor McAnanima, don't sign any NHL contracts over the next couple months, please. That would be nice. We would like you to come back at least for another season. Let's go for the three-peat. And thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And I'm back. I'm not going anywhere.
Awesome. And neither is the cup.
Yeah. Hey, neither is the cup. We're both staying, and we'll see a lot of guys back too.
I don't think you're ever going to live this down.
No, I don't think so. I got a lot of crap from my buddies for that. What I said. They're like, what are you in the WWE or something? Why don't you relax a little bit? I'm like, maybe I should, but I was all fired up. So
perfect.
What a time. What a celebration.
It was great. He is Coach Brant Sherwood, 2-time Commissioner's Cup head coach champion. And we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
If you're a Binghamton hockey fan, then you need to check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your news, stats, information, the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame, top 10 lists, profiles, and so much more. That's binghamtonhockey.net. You're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. Taylor, so obviously, Brant Sherwood goes a long time in this interview, talks about a lot of different things. What are you hoping that, Brant Sherwood can accomplish in a third season? I realize everybody's saying, the cup, right? Go for the three-peat. For me, and this is kind of like something I want to see. is I want to see more guys get called up to the ECHL. That's really kind of what I'm hoping for his third full season. I know the Cup is going to be top of the list, so we got to take that off the top of the list, right? I really think that it would be great to see Brant Sherwood get not just a Tyson Kirkby called up, right? Because we know he's probably good enough to play at the ECHL level. I want to see Blake Tosto get called up. I want to see a Cam Cervoni get called up to the ECHL. And even if it's just for a game and they only play 7 minutes in the whole damn game, getting them called up is a really big accomplishment. What would you like to see Brant Sherwood accomplish in a third full season with the Black Bears?
I agree with what you're saying. It would be nice to see that kind of happen. It would be nice, I think, for him to kind of build a relationship with somebody in a different league, whether it's, a PA team or the Crunch, for example. If there was some kind of thing that they could work out where they kind of have somewhat of an agreement for that kind of thing to happen, because I think that would be not only great for Brant and our team, but the league in itself. I mean, it would be great for the league.
Yeah, I think with Steve Martinson going to the Allen Americans in the ECHL, I think he now has seen what the Fed can offer. And I think there's a possibility that Steve Martinson will still want to work with the Fed teams. And maybe he knows that he doesn't have to go to the SPHL to get a player. He can go to maybe call up Athens and say, hey, listen, I'm really in a pinch. I'm going to be playing in your guys' area for a couple games. Can you send somebody to me? I'm hoping that happens because the networking and the relationships that have to happen, and Brant totally understands that. He has a relationship with a couple of the coaches in the ECHL, and that really does kind of help him. But I hope it kind of goes in the reverse as well with Steve Martinson being with Allen. it would be kind of nice if he reaches out to a few of the Fed teams and says, hey, listen, I need a player. Can we have this guy or XYZ?
Yeah, I think it would definitely be good for any team and just the league in general. I know fans are it's both a very happy and sad thing to see, your players get called up or move on to a different league. But it would definitely be something I think awesome to see happen more often throughout the league.
Yeah, totally agree. Perfect. All right. Well, let's get to it. The Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show, whichever platform you listen to your podcast, and please subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. Just go to Facebook, search the Power Play Post Show, and share any of our posts with your friends. Check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. Thank you to Rob Lapolis, our MC, John Patitucci, our musical director, and also best friend from high school, and from the Binghamton Black Bears, head coach Brant Sherwood. I am Bob Howard. She is
Taylor Welch.
And we will be back soon. We're not sure when. We'll see. It depends on some of the news that comes out here for the Binghamton Black Bears. So if you don't hear from us next week, we'll be back in a couple weeks if you don't hear from us next week. I'm not saying there's not a show next week. I'm just saying that, maybe it'll be 2 weeks from now. It depends. I might have another player interview for next week, and then Taylor and I will have to make up something to talk to you guys about. But either way, we'll let you know. We'll keep you updated on the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. But she is Taylor Welch. I'm Bob Howard, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Power Play Post Show. Be sure to tune in next week to the Box Studios Radio Network for all the latest Black Bears news and interviews from around minor league hockey. The Power Play Post Show would like to thank John Patitucci for all the music you hear on the show. You've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.